And so our next speaker is Natalie Trevino. We'll be doing the inequity of the final frontiers.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Natalie Trevino. I am a decolonial theorist who works on space exploration and looking at the ideas of what decolonization and the universe have in common. So I'm going to kind of dig right into, and actually works well with our previous speaker. So what I'm going to be talking about is the epistemological aspects of colonization and the ways in which those things affect the thinking and the broader worldview that we have about life, the universe, and everything. So I have a bit of here to read, and if anyone has any questions about clarifying terms, raise your hand and just yell at me, because I know that some of these are very theory and philosophy based. So if you need clarification, just let me know. The celebratory narrative of the Western frontier is so pervasive, it needs no retelling. What is left out of the triumphant narrative is something called coloniality, that necessary yet invisible dark side, which underpins the rational, technological, and democratic achievements of the conquest of the Americas. The use of the frontier metaphor for space hides this darkness. It reduces the possibilities of the future to only those that can be profitable, not just in the future, but in the present. So then what is this dark structure called coloniality that exists along with the dazzling glow of the modern world? Along with Enlightenment values, of which the scientific method is part technological achievements and secular governments, there's genocide, epistemicide, which is the systematic murder of knowledge systems. So we can think of basically any non-Western, non-hegemonic knowledge system. The expansion of European patriarchal norms to the rest of the world, the development of racism and economically exploitative systems. Neither can exist in their current form without the other. We can't have NASA without having the concentration camps. Simply put, modernity is the emancipating will and genocidal violence, as scholar D'Souza Santos says. Modernity foregrounds European or North American social and cultural and economic norms and declares them as universal. This universalism assumes that all humans use and understand or should accept these norms. Governance is that of the nation state. Distribution of goods is only through the capitalist market, and rationality, including instrumental rationality, science and technologies, are the only ways to think about the world. We even see these in ethical practices, which often come from the European tradition. If this is modernity, then coloniality is the logic that allows for these things to manifest at the expense of the indigenous peoples of America, Africa, and Asia by destroying their socio-cultural, economic, and political forms in relations to themselves and to the earth. These genocidal practices were then absolutely necessary for the development of the current world system. I'm actually going to skip the next part. So what all of this is produces what I consider the cosmic order of coloniality, or the final frontier. This is a celebratory narrative of the American space program and everything that's been done in space since Sputnik. It is the American leadership in space. It is the use of colonial imagery while describing the future in space, while never actually considering the historical inaccuracies in which oftentimes those metaphors are based. When the American government began to plan its permanent space agency, a memo for the president's science advisor wrote, "The exploitation of any unknown area involves two distinct objectives. One is exploration, and we can see that as science, engineering, technology, and control, which is militarization, which we can know that has never really been that far off of space exploration." This was written by Paul S. Johnson in 1958, and this hasn't changed particularly much. The frontier as a site for exploitation is as old as the American nation state itself. The use of the metaphor impacts our understanding of what is possible and what is real. But as historian Patricia Limerick has warned, space enthusiasts have based their idea in the future of a flawed understanding of history. The American West was not all glory. There is no American frontier without genocide or epistemicide. And while many in the space sector cry, quote, "There are no Indians in outer space," the rationale fails to observe the current forms of violence within the space community, whether those are gendered, racialized, or something more cultural. We can think of the 30-meter telescope or industries that support space activities, such as the Amazon employees who have faced terrible working conditions, including recently reports of suicides and miscarriages. Space exploration is meant to benefit everyone, including those who are not directly in the field. Thus, the frontier metaphor is old. It invokes and sustains violence. What it should and can be retired. A new metaphor for the expansion of Earth-based entities into space needs a more expansive metaphor. One does not hide the violence, rather one that celebrates and includes the diversity of this planet, the diversity of peoples, ideas, ways of being and living, so that space is not a frontier for settlers looking for gold and land, but that we, the people of Earth, expect that there is no metaphor just yet for the migration, the expansion into space. That what will occur will be a new metaphor in search for different ways of relating to the universe, not based on coloniality, but rather by embracing the multitudes of ways Earth and its entities relates to the cosmos. So I see we have a bit of time left, and I actually prefer to have dialogue. So if people want to kind of jump in with questions.
Wonderful. We have a couple, and Jay's going to do that, but we have a couple questions that have been coming in the chat as well. So
yeah, I'm taking a look and seeing, but I don't see one queued with a Q, but certainly one was people would love to get your slides at some point. So if you since you were reading,
I don't have slides. It's
yeah. Oh no,
my document.
Yes, so that they can they can reference for the future. So if you've got a link or something, they would love to have it. That's all. So let us know, or you can share that, or if not, you can always send that to Survey later, and we can try to connect that to things. So, so I have a couple of questions myself, although Vera's got Vera has her hand up. So if Vera, if you would like to make a question out loud here now, please do so. Otherwise, I'll jump in.
Okay. Well, it's for you. I still left my sorry, lower my hand.
Yeah, go ahead. Table that for later, and we'll stay on the current speaker for now. So,
yeah, I have written my comments already on the chat.
Yes, I got it. Thank you very much. So some of what you were talking about, right, is the fact that we have trying to visualize the futures in space. One of the things I've been looking at for visualizing a different future, right, is in science fiction in terms of Afro or African futurism, indigenous futures. Where else can people look to change their idea of what the future could look like?
Well, I think that's science fiction, and maybe I say this because I'm a nerd, and the Dune trailer just came out yesterday. So, we're all on the same wavelength with that. But really, it's a matter of looking beyond the curriculum, so to speak. Science fiction is a fantastic way of imagining a future, but it also reproduces socio and political norms of its day. We can see that when we look at Gerard O'Neill's use of the high frontier, when he's like imagining the future in space, and it's like, well, that's just the 70s America, like in space. Right? I don't want to live on a suburb in the middle of nowhere in space. I don't want to live on a suburb in the middle of nowhere Earth. So what we need to be doing is then looking beyond the reproduction. And that is in Afrofuturism. It is in indigenous futures. It's in looking beyond what is in philosophy and theory, we would say the Western paradigm. It's if you're only reading white guys from Europe and the Americas, maybe you shouldn't. I mean, I love me some Frank Herbert, but his is, we can retire that. I would love to see indigenous science fiction on the big screen. That would be incredible. And I think it would bring so many more people into the conversation that are necessary.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking again. And so we have from Colby Merrill, do strategies exist to separate exploration from control?
Not yet. So I recently finished my doctoral dissertation, which is all about this. And that is the next bit of work that I hope to do, is figuring out what does exploration look like without the coloniality involved. And that's the hardest question. And that's where like no single mind can come up with it. This is the world building that everyone needs to be involved in.
Thank you.